Okay, so hello and welcome to the first and perhaps last episode ever of a new show called 5 on 9. It's a talk show on Channel 9, and I sort of ripped off the idea to some extent from Politically Incorrect, and that went off the air, didn't it? Didn't it go off the air?
I think so.
Yeah, it did, so I feel perfectly, justified in having stolen the idea, not a big deal at all. And the basic idea here is that each week, provided you guys don't completely hate the show and that it does get repeated, or that I don't get fired in the meantime or whatever, is we're going to get together. It's going to be 5 people, hence the 5 on 9. See, 5 people on Channel 9. I'll be the moderator, and there will be 4 guests each time. The guests are going to rotate, revolve. They're usually going to be Microsoft guests, although there will be times when there will be people from the secular world allowed to partake in the activities here. Just for fun, for an outside perspective. So we're going to begin by introducing the 4 guests, and then move on to discuss several topics. And there's going to be a little segment in between a couple of the topics that I call 2-minute topic. But I'm not going to explain that right now because you're just going to forget, since you all have short-term memory loss from all the drug abuse that you had and everything and stuff like that. So we're going to start over here with the bio of Brett Hill. So Brett was an IIS MVP before he came to Microsoft. And what do you do now at Microsoft, Brett?
I'm the technical evangelist for IIS with DPE.
Okay, so
evangelize the greatness of IIS 7 and Longhorn.
IIS Tech Evangelist for DPE then, essentially. Yeah. And you blog over at brettblog.com.
Brettblog.com, yes.
And I'm going to have that, on a little... it's going to be really fancy.
At the bottom,
put that on the screen. I'm going to make the words show up. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah, don't mock me, Jason. Okay, I know this is the first show. I can have you replaced in 2 seconds. You'll walk off my set. You want to do that again? Okay. So anyway, next we have Brad Wilson. Brad is a developer on Microsoft's open source community, Codeplex. And unless otherwise prohibited by law, he also takes any opportunity offered to try to convert people to agile software development. Failing that, he tries to get them addicted to massively multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft, which is actually a problem for Jason and Adam.
Hey, I'm done. Not a problem. I'm done.
I hope I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
I quit. If my wife's watching, I don't play.
Brad's blog is at www.agileprogrammer.com/.netguy. And again, I'm going to do the fancy thing where we actually print that out.
Right there.
Yeah. No,
right.
Well, no, you can't. You can't really. You want to join Jason off the set? You want to do that? Yeah. Bring it on. All right. So here we go.
Kind of a high bar going here.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be 1 on 9.
Yeah, I'm not going to be sad by my guests. All right. So next we move on to Adam Kinney, and Adam is a developer, and I don't know why I'm reading this. I work 2 offices away from him. I should know, but Adam is a developer and designer who leads the dev team behind Channel 9 and On10.net. He likes art, OneNote, Wikipedia, and World of Warcraft. So there you go.
There you go. What domain you guys on?
Yeah. What, do you have a problem too? Do you have this
multiple
addiction?
realms?
No, I'm on things going with a 60 paladin, so I thought I'd just see what they're at.
Oh, okay. There you go.
On a new server.
Remember, guys, remember to speak up for the camera because it's far away.
Okay.
Depends. Are we talking about a horde character or an alliance
That's right,
character?
that's right.
Wait, I haven't even introduced you yet. So, Adam blogs over at adamkinney.com or adamkinney.com. We'll have that. It'd be pretty fancy. So finally, Jason, and your bio took a lot of space for me to write here. Jason is a technical evangelist on the Windows Server evangelism team here at Microsoft. He evangelizes well, we're all kind of on the same team, aren't we? Well,
I'm
almost. At heart, you're what?
I work.
Oh, you work.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Dang.
Must be
I
awful.
guess I didn't get the memo.
So on the server evangelism team here at Microsoft, he evangelizes core fundamentals of Windows Server, codenamed Longhorn, specifically transactional NTFS, remote differential compression, I don't even know what this stuff is, terminal services, remote programs, and other things. When not working, he plays a lot of Xbox 360, works on game development using XNA, listens to good music, and hangs with the wife, no longer playing World of Warcraft. Jason has a job blog, or jlog at blogs.msdn.com, whack Jolson, and of course I'll do that for you too, the words. And also, Jason has a personal blog at www.managed-world.com.
That's a blog. blog.
As a personal blog,
Per
yeah.
blog.
Per blog.
Per blog.
I'm going to sip my tea before we continue.
I
Go
would
ahead and do
call
whatever
it
you guys need to do.
I would call it a blog.
Blog.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's not one of the topics of discussion for tonight.
Oh, well.
So if you wouldn't mind.
Let's
Thank
pass
you.
on that. We're done. We're done.
We'll
So-
take that offline.
The
Yeah.
first subject here, and this is the way it works here on 509, is we do the subject after the introductions, and then we're all going to discuss the subject for about 10 minutes or so. The first subject is, and you guys probably read about this in the news, and I imagine that the rest of you probably, read about this in the news as well, or on blogs or wherever. Oracle is going to begin offering support for Red Hat Linux and give away its own clone of the operating system. How is this going to affect Red Hat? And how is this going to affect open source software in general? And what does this teach us about the services versus product models, as well as what if another company eventually came along and did the same thing to Oracle, right? So what would be the effect on the market? I mean, we essentially have a company here, Red Hat, which was making all of its money by providing support services for its product, and then another company just comes right along, offers those same services for about half as much, and steals that business away from the company, right? So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well,
Jason,
my concern would be the whole YOWD scenario.
what does that mean?
Yet another Linux distro.
Well, that's actually one of the things they're doing, is Oracle's going to have its own distro of Linux.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, the trend that it sets of companies starting to package their own distros of Linux, pretty soon, I mean, there's already, 5, 10, 15 million different distros of Linux out there.
I was going to correct you. I thought you were going to stop at 20 maybe. And yeah.
No, it's in the millions. You have to carry a couple zeros.
Okay.
So it's, it's a dangerous slope to go down. But on the other hand, you have kind of where the operating system is going on in the market, and is it going to get to the point where the operating system isn't a core product itself, where it's, packaged with the product itself? Looking at virtual environments and virtualization and the push we're making in that area.
Well, that's kind of the point here, right? Is that the OS isn't really the core offering, right? The OS is just this thing that's kind of being packaged along with the support package, right? So they're kind of they're losing essentially the entire thing they were selling. I mean, does anybody else have any other commentary on that? Adam, it looked like you were about to open your mouth.
CPM.
Yeah, that's right.
What does CPM mean?
I have no clue. I'm too young.
CPM, are you talking about the operating system?
Yes,
CPM?
exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, so
the idea that
DOS
applications,
Control program for
if
Microsoft.
I buy a basic language, I get the disk with basic on it, and it happens to have CPM on it as well. The idea of an OS that comes with your product. I mean, it's not exactly a new concept.
That's true. We, Windows back in the 2.11 days used to buy products like PageMaker, which was
2.11?
Yeah, Windows 2.11.
Windows 2.11, did you actually use it?
Oh yeah, that wasn't my first version of Windows either.
Isn't that just like a DOS shell? Isn't that all it was?
It was, yeah.
Okay, anyway, go on. So,
like if you bought something like PageMaker, which was desktop publishing software, they actually shipped a copy of Windows in the box when you installed it, and from a DOS prompt you would run PageMaker, and it would start up Windows just to run PageMaker, and when you were done with PageMaker, it would shut Windows down.
Really?
Swear to God, this is
So
how
it ran Windows as an application
Yeah, no, this
from
was-
DOS,
right,
and you
this
could run
was-
PageMaker.
Right. This was 20 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like I said, it's not new. But this is what open source is all about, right? There's, if you're going to take your intellectual property and you're going to give it away and you're going to sell services, then you don't have a moat anymore.
Well, that's
right?
the thing is
you have to offer a lot of value, and I think a lot of people were thinking that Red Hat wasn't offering enough value for the money because Oracle's going to come in here and do it for half. I mean, if Red Hat has a bunch of loyal customers, then they have nothing to worry about.
So Oracle comes along and says, I'm going to offer the same service, for half the cost, and basically take away what your core business is. I mean, what's to stop somebody else from coming along and doing the exact same thing? I mean, what's the effect on the market eventually going to be? And I realize that we're all sort of charlatans here. I mean, we're not really like business analysts, and we're just totally, just kind of shooting the shit here, and there's no way for us to really... Can I say that word on Channel 9?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good, perfect. Was everybody sweating for a minute? Yeah, me too. I'm new on the team, and I don't want to get fired, before my first week is over. But yeah, so I mean, what's the effect going to be? Are we going to see other companies that are going to spring up and offer the support for half of what Oracle's offering? I mean, is the market going to be diluted? Are people going to be just, you know, is this just what happens? Did anybody see this coming? These are the questions that kind of spring up in my mind, you know.
But the interesting problem with this is that, you know, selling software, you have easy reproduction cost. So you spend, you know, we spend all these millions of dollars making Windows, and then it costs us, you know, $3 to make the CD, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the cost of the software isn't really reflected in the $3 duplication of the CD.
Right.
But when you have a service business, then, you know, the scale is I need more people, right? And so you can see that with software and with hardware, you've had this commoditization where, you know, the prices keep pushing down, but there's only so far down you can go with services because eventually, you know, you need to pay people. So what's going to happen is not that another company in the U.S. is probably going to do this, but somebody in India is probably going to do this because they can have labor at half the price.
Yeah, I mean, another ramification of doing that, though, I think it's Seth Godin talked about it on his blog, is the perception you give people, where if your service is, you know, $10, and it may be an amazing product, but it's $10, then people are going to look at that and be like, $10
enterprise on that?
Yeah, that's kind of iffy. You know, I'm going to go with the $200 product instead because, you know, it seems more confident to me.
Well, it's kind of like when, wasn't it Kia that was offering, I don't know if they did this up here in Washington, but in Oregon, I could almost swear that I remember a deal where if you bought one car, you got one free. I'm not even kidding. They were doing, it was either that or Scion. It was one of these new companies, one of the new Korean car manufacturers. And they were doing, you know, you buy one car, you get one free. And I kind of looked at that and I thought, you know, I could buy that car and, you know, a year from now when they don't have the sale, I could go on ahead and sell the other car and probably make a few thousand. But I was instantly totally suspicious of it, you know, so kind of like...
It's like Kia, a little cheaper, but some assembly required.
Right.
Yeah, so it's the same sort of thing, I think. It's like you mentioned, the commoditization. And it seems like it heads in that direction. And you ask the question, like, what does this mean? You know, who knows? In certain ways, it's like exploring new models for distribution, exploring new methodologies for reaching a market that they couldn't reach otherwise. And how does it shift things around? I don't know. And in terms of, you know, Microsoft, what does it mean to Microsoft? You know, we're always investing in exploring software as a service and new ways to deploy and develop software as well. So it's hard to I think, to be quickly smart about issues like that. I know I look at it and go, oh boy, that's a big topic, you know, we're going to go with that.
Yeah, I'm not looking for intelligent responses here.
Well, I'd like to have some.
responses, you know, but I mean, it's really difficult, right? I mean, this is the kind of stuff where we're just being like armchair analysts and just having a little bit of fun, you know. It's very difficult, like you say, to come up with any sort of a real opinion about this, you know, beyond just like a gut reaction.
Yeah.
Right? And I just can't help but start to wonder about what the ramifications of this are, you know, not just for Red Hat, but for open source in general. Right? I mean, is there going to be like a totally diluted market where suddenly, you know, you're going to wind up with this model where the only people who can make any money are the independents and the you know, sole proprietors, or are you going to have a system, you know, kind of based on what Jason's talking about, where there's going to be some kind of a limit, right? You know, where people are going to just forget about the people who are offering it at the cheapest price point and go for something in the middle, right? And so that's going to set some sort of an artificial barrier of entry, right?
I mean, the dilution is something to totally keep in mind where, I mean, even with some of the people that are kind of Linux evangelists that you talk to, you get a bunch of Linux evangelists in a room and you're like, well, what distro should I use? And you know, if you have 12 Linux evangelists, they're going to have 12 different distros that they recommend. Or a smart one might go to distrowatch.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you go there, you know, find the most popular one and then use that distro. You know, it's already a problem. And you look at the typical end user, you know, like a grandmother or a father or an uncle, you're not going to have someone who can, you know, look down and analyze all the different distros of Linux and figure out what they want. The thing about Windows or some other package is that it's, here is what you need. It's kind of the one throat to choke model.
So one of the possibilities here, one of the repercussions then of what you're talking about is that you could wind up with a whole bunch of companies springing up to offer this kind of support and distribution, and all it's going to do is confuse the customer.
And I think that's definitely a ramification of it.
Right, like a good example is, or
A little louder.
a good example of
We gotta remember the camera's
software
far,
as a
right?
service would be like Salesforce.com, where they're the application, they're selling that as a service, but their OS is the web, so it makes sense. But my gut reaction is, I don't understand how you can do your OS and your application, because then, like you said, how many distros do they get? Do they run multiple ones just to run certain applications? Doesn't make sense to me.
And who do you call for support? And who do you call for security? And who do you call when things don't work right? And you know, how fractionalized does that get? How much of an infrastructure can any one of those multiple distribution points build up around the support and distribution and you know, big time support? And that's one of the advantages, of course, Microsoft has, is that you know who to call when you got a security issue. So you know,
So it's the one throat to choke.
right.
Yeah, my guess though is that Oracle did the smart move because here they're undercutting Red Hat, and nobody else is going to think, oh, I should undercut even lower because there's not much space left. So they probably got the last sweet spot bit.
I mean, you think they probably went through, analyzed the situation, like other competing companies would analyze and say, well, Oracle is basically, or Oracle went through and figured out just how low they could go and still make a profit.
Right.
You know,
Oh, come on, we
offer
know
their
it's
service.
because Larry Ellison hates everyone.
Okay, now come on. We're not. This is not bashing of other companies or of other people.
No,
you know?
that was a
personal
person. That was,
attack.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can't
No
really
ad
bash
hominems here.
people.
But I think you're missing
False
here.
advertising.
Check, please!
I should add, you know, just before we move on, that we do all work for Microsoft, and you're going to hear opinions here that are sort of Microsoft-centric because that's the world we live in, right? But we're not intentionally bashing anybody except for what Jason just did. But aside from that, we're not intentionally bashing anyone or any other companies. It's just this is kind of how we see the world, you know?
I think when you analyze this, though, you have to remember that Oracle, above all else, is probably trying to save money for their customers. Because Oracle has this unique problem that they have, you know, they don't have a throat to choke when it comes to the OS. Because Oracle runs on all kinds of distros of Linux and Windows, and so what they're gonna say is, gee, if you want to run our stuff, you're probably going to run our stuff on the box by itself. Why don't we give you a CD that's got everything?
So you think Oracle is trying to make their overall package cheaper? They might not even profit from the Linux service. The whole idea is really just to sell more Oracle. So
Yeah, well, it's
Well, yes.
you know, support costs can be tremendous.
Mhm.
You know, to save $5 a support call by not having to deal with what the Linux distros are, and of course I just made that number up, but
Of
I
course.
mean that could be a huge savings on a per support call basis.
But what's this going to mean in terms of the businesses who actually, you know, you've already got stuff in place. A lot of the, except for startups, obviously. But you know, are you going to take this and use it as is, or are you going to need to integrate it into your existing infrastructure? So I don't know. I mean, my guess is, are there people out there going, gee, if only everything was on one CD, I would go get an Oracle database today. You know, it's that kind of thing.
That's probably why they picked Red Hat, though,
Yeah.
right? Because out there amongst all the people who are doing enterprise Linux, it's probably Red Hat. And so if you have an enterprise, you have Linux out there, you're probably already running the one they picked. And
Right.
because it was open source, they could do that.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
That's a really interesting point of perspective. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You know, like at the end.
So
I
you
mean,
were after intelligence, after
Yeah,
all.
I was going to sprung it, but I didn't. Well, yeah, you,
Accidental.
yeah. It was that intelligence was
It just
totally
doesn't expect
Yeah.
a big whoops. Okay, so we might as well end on that point. I mean, it was a I thought it was a good point.
Yeah, that's as good
I
as it's
actually
gonna get.
learned something. Yeah.
Are we keeping
It's all
score?
downhill for me.
Did I win?
No, we're not keeping score. Yeah, you did win.
Because I want to
Wow.
but you
Oh, we're not
won.
getting score.
I want
but you won.
to. I want to read the credits when they go up.
Well, it's like
I wanna-
who's line?
Who's line?
It's like who's line?
Yes.
Nice.
So.
So now
1,000 points.
what we're going to do next year is something on 509 that I'm going to call 2-minute topic. Okay? And the idea is between the bigger topics, we have a small little lightning fast, scary round that should be really intense. Like when you guys are involved, you do it to it, okay? I'm going to pick 2 people at a time. So first it's going to be Jason and Brad. Then it's going to be Brett and Adam for the next round, okay?
So I already know I'm on the losing side. So
Well, because Brad said the
Just 'cause
smart
I got
thing
one
last
point.
time around.
Right.
Yeah.
This is your chance to redeem yourself.
All right.
any given Sunday.
Well, there is no real correct answer to this one. Now, what I do here is I'm going to give you the topic to argue, and I'm going to name a side for each of you to take, and you have to defend or attack based on the side that I give you. Okay? And you're going to get 2 minutes for this argument. You got to make it intense. You got to make it good. Do you have a question? Is that what you're raising?
Yes,
your
my,
hand?
my
Yes,
therapist. My therapist asked me to not repeat debate class from high school. So
Well, first of all,
can I get an exemption?
I dropped out of high school, so I never took debate class, and I didn't know this is what they did in debate class. I didn't have your fancy education, okay?
Or his therapist.
Or his therapist. Well, no, actually, I have
Oh,
several therapists.
he's got a good
yeah.
one.
But not
Yeah.
Everybody reads his.
Yeah, I mean, I need a really good therapist, because, yeah, there's some problems.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we got
okay,
that.
so you guys ready for 2-minute topic?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Jason, Brad is going to go on for 2 minutes, and I'm going to tell you ahead of time, okay? Jason, you are going to be the yes guy. You're going to be for. You're going to be arguing for this. Brad, you're going to be arguing against, okay? The topic is, are aliens extraterrestrials currently visiting the planet Earth? You've got 2 minutes, go.
They totally are. I mean, look at the cow mutilations that are happening in Nevada. All you have to really do is walk around Microsoft campus and see the developers on campus to realize that we're half alien.
Okay. Well, I think you're, need to see his therapist because aliens. If there were aliens, well, we've been on this planet for how many millions of years? Don't you think they'd have stopped by and said hello?
You calling him a liar?
No. Well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing is,
why would they pick on cows?
The thing is, if they stop and say hello, they're interfering with our society. So maybe what they want to do is actually sit there
you can't
and
just
watch
rip this shit
us.
off from Star Trek.
Yeah, so you cannot take the prime directive and use that as an argument point. I'm sorry.
Okay, how about mathematically, we look at the number of planets that exist in the universe.
Or the Drake equation.
And, right, Rory knows a lot about this stuff. I'm sure he knows firsthand, and I can talk about my experience with probes.
Whoa!
No, that's okay. Let's hear about the
Let's
pros.
don't go there.
Yeah, aliens. He has to be excluded because of his heritage. His parents
French that's just illegal aliens. It's
here.
different.
No, his parents landed here in their crafts, which is why it's a topic close to me.
I gotcha.
Come on, you guys have 40 seconds. Prove to him that aliens are visiting the planet.
So, I mean, with the mathematical possibility of there being a planet out there with actual resident species that are, smart and they're... Yeah, make fun of me some more. I mean, I think anyone who looks at just odds, you can't say that there's no one out there. I mean, the fact that we're the only ones that happen to be created out of the primordial ooze, or however you view, I won't go there. I won't go into religious topics.
Got an
But,
there.
yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to believe that.
Yeah, let Brad have a turn in the last 3 seconds.
So
You lost.
my
All right, that's it. 2
my
minutes is over.
My counter argument is
You don't get any comment. 2 minutes is over. I'm sorry, Brad. Your point has been negated and returned back to 0, and it's been given to Jason. Yes, Brad?
permission to cry, sir.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't like losing.
Can I go on record here?
I just want to say.
Uh-oh.
You can get the last comment. I just want to say.
Is this over or
If there
not?
were intelligent aliens on this planet, how did we get George W. Bush as
All
president?
right, no politics, all right?
Oh, there we go.
Jason, you wanted to make one last
I lose. I lose.
You want to make one last comment there, Jason?
No, I was going to say I want to go on record that saying the topics you chose here for this debate that we had are stupid.
They're supposed to be a little stupid, a little bizarre. It's meant to be kind of like a palate cleanser.
I feel so clean and refreshed.
Just because you couldn't argue the point without referring to popular sci-fi and...
So, you guys have 10 minutes now to imagine what the topic he's going to give you.
Dude, just read Ender's Game. The buggers are out there, man.
All right, anyway, so after a 2-minute topic, and remember this is the first show, gonna work out the kinks and the bugs. If you guys didn't like that section, go ahead and slam me in the comments.
It was his idea.
his email.
His
His
idea,
email.
not ours. We're just following his
Gonna
lead.
figure it out. Okay, so the second subject, which we're going to discuss for 10 minutes, is when it comes to operating systems, is choice really all that great or important or a good thing?
How can it not be, man?
Oh, I can go ahead.
Well,
try to
I mean, for the consumer, choice is a good thing. Choice
Why?
fosters competition. And, if we see why I want to see Linux become successful, is that Linux may come up with a feature or something that absolutely our users absolutely love.
Our lovers?
Yeah, our lovers. Our users and lovers. They absolutely love. And if they find features or they innovate to produce features that are very excellent, then that competition will actually encourage us to do the same and re-innovate, and then we feed off each other, and in the end, the consumer wins.
Okay, so that's an argument about why it might be good for us to have, choice in OSs. But how about from a consumer point of view? Is it good to have a choice in operating systems? Is it good? Is it beneficial?
Well, can I ask you, because you seem to have an opinion, why do you think it would be bad?
I think it might be bad because there's actually a whole psychological, that world built around the whole idea of choice, right?
Yep.
I was reading about this in Scientific American Mind, so I'm very well informed on this topic. I read at least 400 words on it, and the idea is that there are settlers and there are maximizers. And a settler is someone who, if they walk into a stereo shop and there's 400 stereos on the wall, they'll see one and they'll go, that one looks good enough. I'll just take that one. It looks like it's going to play my music just fine. They'll walk away with it. Then there are maximizers who tend to be on the higher end of the intelligence spectrum. And we have a difficult time walking into a store and seeing those 4,000 stereos on the wall and deciding which one. Because we, the maximizers up there on the higher end of the intelligence scale, want to read about all the specs of all the different stereo systems.
Sure.
And figure everything out and figure out exactly what the best one is and go read the consumer reports on it and go read all the feedback and figure out what the best
so what I'm
is.
hearing you
How about
say
this?
is-
Up to 5 plus or minus 2 OSs. Is a good
Yeah, because what I hear you say is you pose the question of, is it a good idea to have choice as if from 0 to 5, from 0 to 5,000, those are very different scenarios. And so, it's true, you go into today into any store and you're just overwhelmed with choices, and how can you make an informed, responsible decision, even on important things like a car or insurance and those kinds of things. It's very difficult to do, and it's challenging. So, but does that mean you'd be better off as a consumer if you only had one? And I don't think that's the right answer. I do think it's the right idea to have some competition. Like, I can think of a good situation of that with Internet Explorer, where I think Microsoft clearly, we just sort of looked at Internet Explorer and said, well, won that one, and
assemble
and
the team.
There's a whole video on Channel 9 about that.
Yeah,
You may
and
wanna
then
watch.
obviously that was not in our best interest.
Right.
And competition, woke us up and said, hey, we got to get back on track with this. And we've picked up the ball again. Who knows where it goes, but at least we have picked up the ball again. And it was competition that drove us to do that. And so then in that case, and I think that's good for the consumer, and it's good for us too. So I think it's good for everybody if there are some choices. But I can't agree that there can be too many.
I need to say that as a PC gamer, I don't have a choice. If you want to play games, it's Windows. That's it.
That's true.
So,
If you want to play games, it's Xbox 360.
Or Windows.
well, no,
No,
yeah, just Windows.
It's a
That's all
Microsoft
I'm
winning
into.
either way.
And
Yeah.
there's an interesting thing here too, because it's a sort of a repeating pattern, right? You'd say Windows versus Linux versus OS 10, but Windows is not one choice; it's 6.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Well, you can
but,
say
but
that.
OS 10 is one choice.
Yes.
So you can sort of compare. If I have a Mac, I don't have any choices. Really, I have OS 10. I have the one version of OS 10. Do I upgrade for $129? But then I go as a Windows user and I say, well, gee, I have 6 choices, and your maximizer is how do I pick the right choice for me?
So what
do
are
I
the 6
do I buy a
choices?
new PC? Well, for Vista, right? We got
Oh,
starter,
okay, right.
basic, home basic, home premium, 2 like there's an enterprise and a business and ultimate.
Yeah.
Right, and it's, from the price scale, some of them not available everywhere, but price scale all the way up to $400.
So you would say that Microsoft thinks choice is a good idea. since we're
Microsoft clearly
offering
thinks choice is a good idea
so
because we
many
offer a lot of
SKUs.
choices.
In a way, we
Now,
do.
but is that confusing to the consumer? If I'm wanting to say, okay, I want to buy a Vista box. I want to buy Vista. Now you have to be like, okay, which Vista do you want to buy?
Well, do
But
consumers?
even within just our one operating system, just the one we sell, there is the potential for confusion.
Well, most consumers, by my understanding, is that they get the OS with the box that they bought.
Yes.
And so is there going to be, a Dell with Home, a Dell with Premium, a Dell with XYZ, a Dell with ABC, and they're going to go, no, I'm going to take the one that's got the Ultimate. I don't know. Because actually, we've never done this before as far as I know. We had Pro and XP Home, and that was about it.
My guess is it'll go with the desktop. If you have a high-end gaming desktop that you buy from Dell, it'll have Ultimate. But if it's just a email machine,
Well, then there's the laptop scenario, too.
And all the laptops, yeah.
And
Right.
that's a pretty, and then media scenario comes
Well,
in.
right.
So
we
they
have 5. We actually have 5 versions of Windows today. Well, 6 actually. If you think about Starter Edition. So this is very different, right? Because you have Starter Edition, you have Home, you have Pro, you have Media Center, you have Tablet. Some of these you can't buy, but I'm pricing a laptop right now. So I go into the Dell site, and some of them come with Home, and the only thing I can get is Home. Some of them come with Media Center, but I can pay extra for Professional, which I don't really understand because I thought Media Center was kind of like a superset of Professional. Pay more money for less functionality. I don't understand.
Yeah, it is.
So it's a weird choice, right? It's a weird choice.
Well, let
People don't know how to
me
make
put
it.
the whole question another way too, right? To kind of backpedal a little bit here and go back to the original topic. So we've kind of talked a little bit about the confusion that might arise from having several different versions of Windows. Now think about a world in which, well, how about just a country in which you have maybe 50% of all cars with the steering wheel on the left-hand side of the car up in the driver's seat. And then another 10% have the steering wheel in the back seat on the driver's side. Another 10% have the steering wheel, you know, in the back seat, you know, on the passenger side. And then another, well, I guess that would be the driver's side, but and what we traditionally think of as the passenger side in the States. And so on, you know, where all the way down the line you have the steering wheel popping up in different places, right? Or in other words, something very fundamental about the driving experience changes from one vehicle model to the next, right? Now, that's a world where change starts to be a bit awkward, right? I mean, there might be ways of making that work, but when I think about a world in which we have, like, let's say that BIOS survived, you know, and it has in some way, but let's just say that it survived as a commercial offering. Let's say we had BIOS, and we had Windows, we had OS 10, we had, you know, Linux, and we had several other offerings. You know, let's say that OS 2, yeah, we're still being, is it still existing in any way? Is it supported at all?
I don't think so.
Because people love it, you know, they just go nuts for OS 2. But anyway, so, you know, OS 2 is still around and all that, you know, like, let's say that all these things were still around. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? That's kind of what I'm getting at here. I mean, would that benefit the consumer?
I think it's survival of the fittest. I mean, the features that thrive or that people love are going to stick around. I don't think it's directly correlative to talk about what you're talking about with the comparison with the cars. I think.
Oh yeah, it's totally manufactured just for the sake of
well, right, but it's not a good comparison to say, okay, varying OS is what we actually compare that to is cars with the steering wheel on the left, steering wheel in the back seat, steering wheel, you know, in the trunk. You know, it's more, you know, when you get upper end cars, now you have cars where the headlights move as you're turning, or you know, you have fully power doors now instead of just manual doors, or you have, you know, a stereo system. You know, you have air conditioning. Air conditioning used to be, you know, it was an add-on. You had to buy extra to actually put air conditioning in. Now, you look at it and it's hard to find a car that doesn't have air conditioning that's brand new. So it's kind of like the evolution, where it's the same superset. I mean, it's the same idea. It's an OS. We're not talking about comparing OSs to applications to other software.
But
I mean,
we could
about
eventually
OS.
be discussing that, though. I mean, especially with people talking about things like 3D desktops and just completely different user interfaces. You're talking about a fundamentally different user experience.
Right, but if it's successful and it takes off, then other people to thrive and to actually maintain their market share are going to have to adopt that paradigm if people love it. Look at like flying cars. I mean, there were all sorts of people that tried to invent flying cars. They never took off. They've never been successful today. You know, it's that kind of thing where if they try something radical and the users don't like it, it'll just die out.
I think the opposite. I actually think that for the most part, consumers don't want choice, especially when it comes to operating system, for the exact reason of the gaming stuff, right? People want to know that they can go to the store and buy a software package without having to scope out exactly what version of you know, what 17 OS they have.
But those type of people buy an Xbox 360 or something.
Well, I'm not talking about games in particular, but it's like
still, yeah, that probably,
that's the
you know,
whole-
what cars
most-
you might have.
Plan the
yeah.
same as everybody else.
No, yeah, but most software is available only for Windows. You know, there are some choices available for the other stuff. When I go to the store, there's basically no software available for Linux when I go to the store.
It's all free, right? You just
Well,
download it.
that's part of it too. But I mean, you know, people are willing to pay for the CDs with Linux itself on them instead of downloading it sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but you know, for the most part, they don't want change. But unfortunately, what happens is you get this monoculture, which is susceptible to attack, right? And so we see this. Apple's trying to leverage this really hard here, saying, you know, we have PCs that don't get viruses, and the reality is the reason you don't get viruses is because nobody uses you. Right? If you had 90% market share, you would have all the virus problems.
I would say overall choice is a great thing, because I just wonder what Windows Vista would look like without a Mac in the market, right?
Agreed.
That's true.
I mean, would it look
That's
like
true.
Windows 95? I would want a different choice if it did.
Yeah.
I would be playing Atari or
yeah.
something. I don't know.
And the great thing about a free economy is when you sit on a Windows 95 for 4 or 5 years like we did on 96, Firefox has popped up.
Yes.
Right?
So-
That's the great thing about a free economy.
Choose a choice.
Right, and I think that's what drives, you know, the people to make changes who are leaders in the market, and without that competition, I think eventually customers would basically buy it, because, you know, why innovate when you don't have to? If you own it all, why innovate? And so I think it's a chicken and the egg, sort of one leading the other and one leading the other, and you know, if you interrupt that cycle, then I think everyone loses in the long run.
Oh All right. Well, it sounds like we have a lot of differing opinions, and we aren't going to settle anything. But it was actually interesting. I don't think anybody won this conversation.
I think
You know, since Brad invented the idea of winning a conversation.
I'm willing to take the points for the team.
Okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
All right, you get your point back.
All right.
All right.
What's your
So it's time for the next 2-minute topic. This time it's going to be between Adam and Brett. And you guys understand the rules.
Yes.
I assume from having watched these two guys duke it out. So your 2-minute topic, and let's see, I'm going to, Adam, you're going to be for, and Brett, you're going to be against, okay?
Okay.
So you're going to be the pro and anti. Your topic is, would it be unethical to clone and then enslave yourself? You have 2 minutes, go.
I'm against cloning and enslaving myself.
And I'm for it.
Yes, you are.
I think it would be
No.
totally awesome because I could play WoW all the time while my clone went to work.
No way you could possibly want to do that to yourself. I mean, you share a common biology, you share a common genetic heritage. You have so much in common with each other. How could you want to take advantage of yourself like that?
Actually, I would want to do that multiple times. I think I would want like 5 of me. If I think about it, how many things could I be doing at the same time?
And then, what's to keep your clone from trying to enslave you?
Well, I would, as soon as they were cloned, I would definitely have to install like a pacemaker. That, you know,
So total domination
Right,
we're talking
exactly.
here.
They
That's
would-
a lost
They would be in
storyline.
fear, but yeah, I think,
You're scaring
just
me
make
now.
the
You're
whole show
scaring me.
these comments.
yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it, I could do pair programming with myself.
There you go.
How efficient would that be?
I
Like
don't
right
know.
in that room.
I don't know. You could have access to everything that you have. That would be so amazing.
Now wait a minute, you've suddenly gone pro.
Actually, it sounds like a really good
No,
idea.
I'm
shooting
just
them
supporting
down.
him now because I want to see how
Yeah.
more outrageous this can be.
Well, I could take a nap on the way to work.
There you go, yeah.
One guy
You
driving,
can take
me
5
sleeping.
naps.
Sure. Yeah, the other guys could take a nap in the trunk. There's room.
I don't know. There's just something I think intrinsically wrong on so many levels about all of that.
Such as?
Such as being kind to other people.
Well, but see, they would get to live. They would get to live my life, which is it's good. And I would help them.
But they
I would
want to.
help
They
them.
don't want to live your life. They want to live their life.
But we would all live our lives together.
No,
'cause
with
I was
you
like,
in
okay,
control.
You play with my son. You play with my daughter.
Adam, move to Utah.
Well, no, that's a whole different thing.
This is a
No,
2-minute topic for the
Because if you think about it, all together, I would be enjoying it all. It would be, I guess,
Very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because at night we would all get together, have a conference. So
And they
what'd
would
you
kill
do
you.
today? No. Because I would have to put them against
you
each
got
other.
you got the button that says I'm going to kill you. For it.
And it's a good place to end the when we all get together at night part. We're not going to go beyond that. So that's good. No, that was a nice little 2-minute topic. I actually like your idea because I've often, when I'm washing the dishes, I think, man, I wish I had a clone of myself.
That is
Because
right.
then,
That's really
then
cool.
I wouldn't have to wash the dishes. I would instead,
But how would
Wouldn't
you
that be
know
nice?
if you're you or you're the clone of you?
Well, I'd still
I would
know.
get the tattoo.
Oh,
right?
see,
You get one
Or the
tattoo.
bubble under the
Figure it
eye,
out.
the little mark under the eye, depending on what number clone it is.
Yeah.
We've seen the movie.
Actually, yeah,
Wait,
my
what
tattoo would be
movie is
0.
So what if he
Seventh
went
day,
wrong?
is it?
I haven't seen it.
Day or
Sixth
whatever.
day.
Sixth
I actually
day.
Work
thought you were
together
going
with
with the
Arnold.
multiplicity thing.
I haven't seen any of these things.
Oh.
I'm very
6
popular
days,
culture deficient. Yeah, because
I thought you were all smart and you read journals, and I'm Rory, I know everything.
Yeah, oddly
Well,
enough,
there's
they
no-
don't talk about this kind of crap in the journals I read. That's why I'm so interested in this stuff. I never get exposed to it.
Schwarzenegger never makes it into Scientific American.
Yeah,
Just
well,
be-
yeah, just-
It's a travesty.
Two
It's a
things there
travesty.
that
Alright.
doesn't match.
So last topic of the day,
He's an unscientific American.
and
Not even American, that's what I mean.
go. Excuse me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
are
someone
we
was
all
talking.
moderating? No, I don't think so.
Is
Thank you.
anybody?
Yes, Brad, somebody is moderating, sort
This
of.
is derailing
Shut up!
quickly.
Alright, so subject number 3 is, it's kind of there's a whole bunch of stuff here. How can money be made from internet video? Like how can YouTube survive,
Oh,
right?
gosh.
Because recently Google made the purchase of YouTube. And
Bad
first of all, okay, now that's actually where I wanted to start. I want to talk about YouTube, and I also want to talk about Scoble's TV show, because Scoble put up a really interesting post recently, in which he talked about the economics of having a video show on the net where he has this ratio worked out where pretty much no matter what, the more subscribers he gets to his show, the more expensive the bandwidth is, but he's still making the same in advertising revenue, at least in terms of ratio, right? So he's always losing money. Like, he's taking in more as he gets more subscribers, but it's never enough to actually cover the bandwidth. You know, to say nothing of labor and materials and things like that and travel, you know? So let's just start out, you know, we'll move on to that if we can, but let's start out with, like, you know, Google's purchase of YouTube. You just said stupid idea, or stupid, big stupid mistake, like, talk about
Well, perhaps I should step back and say I don't think it was the smartest decision, mostly because of legal ramifications. With the whole RIAA being on a rampage and kind of the trend that that's going down, I would not want to be Google owning YouTube with how much copyright infringement is present up on YouTube. I mean, the amount of clips that come from copyrighted material that are up there that users have uploaded, I mean, it's crazy. Look at I think it was Japan. You know, the equivalent of, I think it was the Actors Guild in Japan actually requested that something like 26,000 videos be pulled from YouTube. You know, I don't think we've seen the last of that. I think we're going to see a lot more of that direction happen.
So, but what does that mean to them financially? Nothing really, right?
Well, until the MPAA or whatever it is sues them. You know, let's say
for what though?
Yeah.
Copyright
$100
infringement.
million?
Copyright infringement.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, and if
How's it gonna match?
you know,
what
if
they'll
each
make off
clip
of
is a
ads?
$1,000 violation, you know, similar to, you know, the RIAA stuff, they could be looking at a lawsuit of, you know, perhaps $100, $200 million.
Well, something that somebody is probably going to bring up in the comments, just because it was brought up in my blog when I wrote about this, is fair use. And that's the idea that as soon as YouTube is asked to remove something which is infringing on copyright, if they do, then they don't actually get in trouble, right? Which is one of the interesting things. But one of the things I wonder about is with the sheer volume of content that gets put up on YouTube. You know, I don't know, like, I don't know how the law works. I mean, is there a certain amount of maximum time that they're allowed to take to remove the copyrighted material? Because, I mean, I don't see how they could possibly keep up with all the requests. I mean, 26,000 videos, yeah. Just that alone. I mean, how many people does it take? What does it cost just to take the videos down? And how many viewers are they going to lose, right? Or in other words, how much ad revenue are they going to lose just because those videos are gone?
Well, and the thing is, if you remove all those videos, is it YouTube anymore? I mean, is the fact of all the types of videos that are present, is that what makes YouTube YouTube? And if you take those away, is it going to be as popular anymore? Is the essence then gone?
So you're wondering, is YouTube a method of distribution for commercial material, or is YouTube really YouTube, where it's, you know, a bunch of homegrown
let's just hypothesize for a second that no one abused other people's copyrighted material, that everyone was fair. Let's just imagine that for a second.
Okay.
Would it still be used for something like YouTube? Would YouTube still be extremely popular as a means for people to put up their own videos or fair use expressions or creative expression or whatever the heck they wanted to, any kind of mashup of multiple things to make a statement or make art or just to goof off? Would there still be a value in that?
Yes.
And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
And so I think that this will all get worked out either through money or lawsuits or rights. It is a gigantic, hairy area, and they obviously step right into the middle of a big landmine. But it's one they're willing to take in order to be ahead of the curve. Yes.
They'll make more money than they
let's be clear, this has direct impact to Microsoft too with MSN Soapbox out there.
Well, yes.
Heard of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, why I would argue about the fair use argument is that the problem with fair use, as it was defined in the 60s, is completely different than fair use post-DMCA. So, fair use now in the 21st century is almost non-existent.
What was it in the 60s?
No, as in pre-Digital Millennium Copyright Act and everything like that.
What was it?
You know, I could actually copy a video, use it for myself, or even give it to a friend as promotional or whatever. That was fair use, because I bought the product. But now with all this legislation that's come, that's no longer fair use. Now you're infringing on the copyright.
Really?
Well, look at even the presence of the rootkits that, you know, the Sony rootkit fiasco on their CDs. They want you to think that, no, you're not buying something from us. You're essentially paying us money and we're leasing it to you. We own the content. It's our content, not yours.
Well, it's actually always been the case, though.
Software has always been.
Yeah, that's always been the case. But the thing is back in the 60s when people were dubbing cassettes of 8 tracks and and concert bootlegs and things like that. I mean, the problem was, there's two things. One is that they just didn't know because it's hard to find these people. But the other thing is they had a very limited distribution, circle. It's like I would only give this to my 10 friends. And so it wasn't as big a deal as when I go put it on an FTP site and 1 million people download it in a day. And so now it's a huge problem. But it's always been, the fair use has been a tough one. The DMCA was a terrible piece of legislation, unfortunately, that took away a ton of our rights because a lot of the stuff that you have that you don't realize is encrypted and decrypting. It's like I have a bunch of DVDs and I want to watch them around my house, but the U.S. government made it illegal for me to take the bits from the disk and put it on a hard drive. I mean, it's crazy.
But that's the thing. I think if you look at old VHS videos and look at the FBI warning at the beginning, it said that, it's not illegal if you copy them for personal use.
Yeah.
Where, for backup or something like that. As soon as you distribute it or you're making money off it or something, it becomes illegal. But now, just the act of copying it, is deemed not fair use anymore and it's illegal.
Well, you still have the right to make a copy for your own use.
Not necessarily. When you look at a lot of CDs, there's a lot of CDs that you can go into a store, buy a CD, and it actually has software on it that either you have to use their own software, or there's other, even game companies
what do you mean use their own software? You mean to listen to it?
Yeah, exactly. There's some CDs that have their own media player where you have to actually use their media player.
Well, these are
Not only that, but there's been games that have been released. There have been games released where just the presence of, let's say, Nero, if Nero Express is installed on your machine, it refuses to play. Because I can't remember.
Okay.
I can't
I was just
remember which
curious,
one it
yeah.
was. But just the presence of Nero, you might infringe the copyright, so we won't let you.
Well, what are they going to do about, Vista, which has your DVD burner built in?
Vista's actually got a lot of support for DRM.
Yeah.
Probably the most support for DRM of any OS ever released.
That's true.
In fact, there are things you can do in XP that you can't do in Vista anymore. Like, get an upsampled DVD. So it's like I take the bits and I guess what the bits in between are going to be to make a high-res picture. You can't do that anymore unless you've got a protected path. Which it's like, well, okay, so I need to buy a new video card and a new monitor so that I can get the same stuff I used to have in XP for free. So.
But
I
you
mean-
need an HDMI output.
Right,
All that,
exactly,
okay, right,
yeah.
But it's not the only example of kind of legislation gone crazy. You even look at, let's say, public. You look at the stuff that's open to the public. The public domain. You look at stuff that's actually out in public domain, and you have the Mickey Mouse scenario now, where every time Mickey Mouse comes up to where it's going to get released in the public domain, the Walt Disney Corporation lobbies and lobbies and lobbies and gets the act of how long a company can actually hold on to that IP extended. It's been every time it's come up for renew, it gets extended, it gets extended. It's the Mickey Mouse scenario.
So there's a possibility here of somebody coming in and attempting to change the law. I mean,
it's what it is. They are changing
fair
the law.
use is concerned. Well, I'm talking about fair use, like where Google has purchased this company, and of course, it was a stock trade, and it was. And I don't remember what the deal is exactly, but they can't sell the stock, it doesn't vest for a certain period, and they can't do anything with it for a while. But either way, eventually, somewhere down the line, is the law going to be changed by the people who, own the IP that's being posted on YouTube, so that even posting it for a certain amount of time perhaps might result in some sort of transgression against the law, right? That could eventually possibly happen. And what's going to happen to the value of YouTube as soon as that happens, Is it going to plunge, Is the investment going to turn out to be really, really bad? It's kind of hard to say.
Well, some people are speculating that Google bought YouTube to get into the fight.
What do you mean?
Because they have a lot of money and they want to get the issue resolved, right? So I don't know if this is necessarily true, but speculation might be that let's go buy what is clearly probably the biggest copyright violation target on the internet, and just say, guess what? Those guys were running it on their business or running on their basement, but now it's Google.
Now it's funded, yeah.
Now we have billions of dollars come after us. Let's resolve the issue. Let's make. It can't be coincidence that there were, licensing agreements signed with a bunch of major distributors days before the sale. It can't be a coincidence. It's like, it's like, hurry up and get this stuff done because, like NBC's like, oh, I don't want that stuff there, but at the same time, it's getting me new viewers.
Right.
So it's like, you gotta find a way to be able to put stuff there and get new.
This is also new, and this is kind of like suddenly it's become a weird. And I think the reason it's gotten so much press suddenly is that the people who aren't using YouTube have become aware of it. And so the lawyers and all the industry and everybody's starting to know about it, even though they've never set the site on their eyes on the site. It gets a buzz, it gets, you know, hey, what's going on? Obviously something's happening. It's kind of like MySpace. Everybody knows about it. A lot more people than actually use it.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, though, it starts to be, like we're talking about, a situation where this is all new material, and it's going to have to get ironed out one way or the other, and they're going to be winners and they're going to be losers. In any event, I think there's a place for this, however it comes out, even if it's just, like I said before, for personal expression, for posting. Maybe what happens as a result of that is a giant rise in the interest in self-publishing videos that are self-made, as opposed to taking other people's stuff and cutting it up. Maybe it would have a gigantic, what I'm trying to say is help to nourish the self-expression market.
Which I would say has already started to happen.
Yeah.
We've done videos on 10 about a lot of different comedians who
Exactly.
have signed deals, and there's one who just recently signed a deal with NBC to do short little videos. And
So
I mean, they wouldn't have been discovered without it.
So I think that what they're trying, the reason they want to control it is because they want to find a way to exploit it. They'd like to be able to put, you know, television offerings that you can only get from YouTube, from NBC, or from CBS or Walt Disney, you know, and as opposed to having their stuff lined up there, they push that way because they need to find new ways to get the content out. And so that's another angle, and a reason that this has really got to get on now. And so I think that this is all part of the, you know, the evolution of the long tail, so to speak. And the whole thing is really about, to me, it's all about enabling people to express, enabling the community to find ways to connect. And any technology that lets that happen is in a new way. It's going to be a powerful experience.
Well, an interesting other idea about Google buying YouTube is, so as you're talking about with the companies getting interested in now pushing their material, I know that there is one movie company that is pushing all their trailers in on their own will. You know, they push them into there so everybody can see them, and it's done through this safe environment where people are like, oh, it's cool, it's just a trailer. It's not being force-fed by some marketing department.
Right.
But now if you think about it, if Google's all about advertisements,
Yep.
then they can just say, hey, you're pushing stuff you're trying to make money on, you need to pay us. It's just another form of advertisements. It's video. There you go.
The thing if NBC.com, CBS.com, all the major affiliates start pushing all their TV shows and content on YouTube, is it YouTube anymore?
Well,
I mean, YouTube is so good to where people can get their name out there, they can do their own creation.
It is, but it's the same thing.
YouTube owns the content as it winds up on YouTube.
Whoa.
It owns it. Some rights to redistribute. It's a very fine line, but you're right.
That's the deal.
You give them the
perpetual, you get a perpetual free redistribution.
Oh.
So you do sign over hard.
You do sign away some of your rights. And, you know, of course, nobody reads the fine print viewers.
But that's
My understanding is give them a video and have it on YouTube and then try to sell it yourself and sue them saying that it's yours.
So they could just that's what they are. You're a distribution center. But I'm just rights is really another issue. If they package it on a DVD or bought an HBO show and published YouTube on it, it was your stuff. That would be.
Well, and clearly somebody takes a television show that they don't have the right to own and puts it on YouTube and subjects it to legal restrictions and requirements that they were never going to give away in the first place. Which is clearly one of the big issues for them. So I think that's probably why they all end up signing all these deals, because it's like, we want to be at the forefront of this.
Well,
we want to make sure that we have as many rights as possible. Well, they probably have a different deal than, you know, when I upload a video.
And the question I have out of all this is, how do they make money? How do you make money off of
Well, they are
YouTube?
making money.
Right, they're losing money.
That's what I wonder, is like, how does this turn into, because, you know, obviously they can't, unless it's just goodwill.
It's all
you know.
advertisements.
Yeah, it's ads.
I mean,
It's kind of the new money-making model. Where right now, even Microsoft talks a lot about, yes, we have our current model of you sell software. But now the next kind of model that we need to conquer is the ad-based revenue. You know, it's a completely different source of revenue that's out there.
So so when you look on a YouTube video, are ads embedded in there?
I'm not sure if they are now.
Not yet.
And especially not when people are sharing, you know, because you can embed a YouTube video pretty much anywhere. And when you embed, there's no ads.
But it
And,
leads you directly to the site. The video
Yes.
ends and
If
it says
somebody
watch like
chooses
these.
to go directly to the site.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it says the video ends and then there's like 2 previews. Hey, watch movies like these.
Yeah.
You click it, then you're on YouTube.
Wait, tell you
And
what,
they have
guys,
their ads.
we're out of time. We've kind of gone over, so we can let the conversation continue online, probably in the comments section if anybody else has anything else to say, And they'll probably refute us and make fun of us and call us a bunch of, poopy heads and things like that.
But we are
What
poopy
else is
heads.
new?
We are
so
poopy heads.
that'll be fun. But I wanted to thank you guys for being a part of the first and, like I said, possibly last episode.
Hey.
That's very
There
ominous.
you
That's a
go.
clue, that's a
It is
clue.
last episode. Lights
Good
out.
timing, good timing.
Good to
So
hook.
thanks everybody for being here. And thank you guys for watching. And let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and we'll try to, kind of refine the format of the show until it turns into something that you'd actually want to watch every week. And so I guess until then, bye.
Bye.
So long!
See ya.